Hi, I'm Al Stroud. I'm here to give you a few basics on your iPhone, things you can do to get started. So with that, let me go ahead and switch to another one so you can see my screen. Okay, here we are back. I want to start this session with a few basics of the iPhone. And the first one I want to do is go to the settings icon. If you will find that on your phone and just tap on that, you'll see it comes up with a list of things. Your name, if you scroll up all the way top, if you're not there, you should see that it has your name at the top, and then underneath it a whole bunch of other options. And the first thing I'd like to do is to get you to put a name on your phone. And we're going to do that by scrolling down in this until we get to General. When you get to General, you're going to tap in this block along here. I usually just tap on the little arrow or caret on the right hand side. When I do that, it gets me to this screen, which is the General screen, and I'm going to touch in the About. When I do that, you can see the first thing on there. It says that mine is called Hal's iPhone. Yours may just say iPhone, or it may actually have your name in there. If it says what you want it to say and it clearly identifies you, you can just leave that alone. If it doesn't, I need you to tap on this little icon on the right-hand side, and that gets you to a screen where you can actually rename your phone to anything you want it to be. And the main thing is make sure it's one that somebody else would identify you when they see it. So you don't want it to just say iPhone. I don't care what you say, but you need to be able to tell somebody how they would know it is you when they see the name of the phone. And we're going to see more why that's important later on. So if you want to take a moment now, go ahead and change that. I think it'd be good if you need to. If not, we just go up here to the top where it has this little blue with a left arrow. I'm going to touch on that. Take me back to General, and I'll have you note right here that another thing it says is software version. It does tell you what version of the software you are currently running on this phone. There's other interesting stuff on this page, like the model name, so you know that I have an iPhone 13, the model number, the serial number. When I first started teaching people about the iPhone, this was not available. People had no real way of telling what version they had. We had to look at the buttons and the configuration and try to figure out which one they had. But Apple helped us out by putting that in here now. So now I'm going to go ahead and go back to General. And under General, you'll see it says Software Update. I'm going to click on that software or touch over here on the right hand side for that software update. And you can see it does tell me that mine is 15.6.1 and it is up to date. And up here, you'll see it says automatic updates. I'm going to just touch there, and it takes me over to a screen that says download iOS updates and install iOS updates. I usually keep these both turned on. I wanted to go ahead and download them and install them as soon as they're available. So I turn that on. It doesn't always work, but it usually does. I have this turned off right now because as I'm making this, iOS 16 is about to come into play, and I did not want to have it trying to update while I'm in the process of making these videos. Okay, I'm going to go back again. I'm going to go back all the way to General, and I want to talk about a few other things in settings itself. So you saw General, so let's go all the way back up to the top here. And the first thing I want to show you is down a little ways. In something called Emergency SOS. If you look at Emergency SOS and touch that on the side, it tells you how to turn your phone off in an emergency. Now, this does vary a little bit depending on whether you have a phone with a button or a phone without a button. And mine, which is an iPhone 13, I do not have a home button. So my option for doing this is to press either of the volume buttons on one side and the power button on the other at the same time. When I do that, it opens up this screen. This screen allows me to turn off my phone, to see my medical ID, or do an emergency SOS call. I'm going to just cancel that now. I'm just going to touch the little button. I don't want to turn it off. But if you have a problem with your phone, if it is doing something strange or it's frozen in some way, you just need to get to this screen, turn the phone off, and then after 30 seconds or so, use the power button to turn it back on. And it should reset it. It's sort of like in the old days when computers used to crash a lot and you would just unplug them and plug them back in. Well, that's essentially what we're doing here. So I'm going to cancel this and get out of that. Although I would mention this is also the way you can make an emergency call. So if you wanted to call 911, you can just slide that and it'll do it right away. Once I've done that, it's going to make me enter my password again to get back to normal operations. You can see it has something down here called call withhold. I do that because I don't necessarily want it to make an emergency call immediately. I wanted to have some control over that. I could also turn this on, that is call. If I do 5 clicks on the power button, it will call 911. So those are some things you should consider. You should also make sure you have some emergency contacts in here. When it makes emergency calls to 911, it will also call your emergency contacts and let them know that something is going on. And that could be very handy for you. You know, it may be that a neighbor or a son or a daughter or somebody could get there faster, even than 911, if you have a real emergency. So just worth being aware of. And you can change those, how it works somewhat in this emergency SOS settings. While we're here, I'd also like to show you about Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. I think we all know what Wi-Fi is. Your phone obviously has the capability of working directly with the internet through your provider if you have data. And most people, or a lot of people now, have unlimited data on their phones, or at least a sufficient amount that they could do a lot of internet. But you really don't need to be doing that. It's probably faster to actually be connected to a regular Wi-Fi system. And you can see here that I am connected to one at home. This is my home Wi-Fi system. And the way I connect to them, the way you can connect any of them, is just go here into settings. You go down to Wi-Fi, you touch that, and it will take you over to a screen that tells you what Wi-Fi sources are available in your area. And you can just click on one of those. It will, if it's password protected, it will ask you for the password. Once you enter that, you're connected to the service. You're back on Wi-Fi, you're no longer using your data, and you have the reliability of a local provider for you. For those of you who may be watching this who live in Frisco Lakes, when you in any of our amenity centers, you can use the Frisco Lakes Wi-Fi. You can get the password for that by checking at any of the front desks, and probably most of your friends and neighbors already know. Once you sign into one of the centers, you can use that. They will automatically connect in any of the centers when you go there. And the same is really true with any Wi-Fi network. Once you connect with it, unless you tell it to forget it, it's going to try to connect to that automatically whenever you return to that same place. I know I've had hotels that I've been at more than once, and if I've used that hotel's Wi-Fi before, it will often just connect right away. Of course, if the password is changed, you're going to have to change the password. Okay, let's get back out to settings. The other option on here I wanted to mention was Bluetooth. It's very important in this class that we have Bluetooth turned on. So if you click that little button and make sure that you have a green here, that does turn on the Bluetooth. It makes it accessible. You have to generally connect using a device. So you would go to your device and you work from there and from here to try to make sure that you connect it. So if I needed to connect to something like a different microphone or a different set of earphones, I do that through this by going and putting that in a mode where it can be paired with this. And once I get it paired with it, it'll show up on the list. And all I've got to do is go here and click on it, and it will connect to it. You can generally not connect to more than a couple of devices at a time. I think I can be connected to my watch and to another device at the same time, but it is a limiting factor. I will also mention to you that if you have a car phone connection where you can talk uh, through your phone while you're driving, then you need to be careful if you get to using your mapping programs. A lot of those try to connect through Bluetooth to the car, and it will not necessarily give you the voice. So if you're having trouble, if you're not hearing anything from your speakers in the car and you're not hearing anything from the speakers on your phone when you're in the mapping program, you probably want to turn Bluetooth off. That way, at least your phone speakers will work and you'll be able to hear the directions. Don't be looking down at the screen while you're driving. So that's Bluetooth. And one other thing I want to mention while we're in settings is to go down a ways. I want you to scroll down until you come to accessibility. Accessibility, and then touch the little caret on the right. And I'm going to have you scroll down again, this time almost to the bottom of the screen where it says accessibility shortcut. This is a way of getting some additional features if you want them. They're sort of tricky, but you've got a magnifier, you've got assistive touch, which are a couple of ones I leave on there all the time. So assistive touch is really helpful if you've always wanted to keep your home button and your phone no longer has one. It's a way to get it back. It's also a way to make it easier to get to some features of your phone if you have trouble with the motions. So it's something I'm going to show you, but I turned this on in the as an ask mode, and I'm going to get us out of this and I'll show you how that works. Once it's turned on, it allows me to just do 3 clicks on my power button to get to something. So let's get out of that now. So I'm going to go back, just get out of this all completely. I'm going to go back. I'm just going to click my power button 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And you'll see it pops up with a variety of things. And if I touch on Assistive Touch at the top, I now have this extra floating icon which moves around my screen. I can move it around wherever I want it, get it out of the way. So if I have that and I touch it, what I get is this screen, and it lets me have a home button. So I can now use that, and it will take me home if I'm somewhere else. And I do the home button, it treats it just like the home button used to on your phone. I touch it again, I touch it twice, and I get a different screen, which we'll talk about later. So it is a way of getting another set of easy to touch or easy to use icons that you don't have to try to use the various motions that iPhones without a power button require. So we'll come back to that a little later, but that's the basics that I wanted to tell you. You learned about where the settings, how to find settings on your phone. That's this icon. And that once you're in it, you have general as another option, which allows you to do things like rename your phone. Uh, and that's this general setting down here. And that's also where you can go to check whether or not your phone's up to date in that generals. So I hope this is helpful to you. We just wanted you to have a way of getting started, getting some of the basics, and knowing that if you have a crisis with your phone, just turn it off and restart it. And most of the times that will solve your problem. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you will come back and watch some of the other videos.